All artists have their inspiration, and for Yitka Exler, her inspiration is everywhere. For expression, there's Salvador Dali. For color, Vincent van Gogh. And for personality, there's Kermit the Frog. Exler doesn't just make art, she creates characters.
Mister, you talking? Based on New York City taxicab, he has more energy than Con Edison, and he feeds off New York City noise. He gobbles it up and then he burps it right back to your face.
As part of her latest project, Art Plush, the mother of two is creating kid-friendly characters based on famous artistic styles. Meet Faso, a cat created from the cubism of Pablo Picasso. Or Sali, the dreaming puppy inspired by the work of Dali. Or Zolik, the splatter dog based on the technique of Jackson Pollock. Art Plush began with a simple question.
What if there is like a generation of kids that they would be influenced by art? I created characters, I changed the artwork so little kids can relate to it.
Creating has always come naturally to Exler.
When I was playing, I was creating little dolls and little creatures out of grass, out of anything.
Growing up, she was inspired by the characters she saw on TV, like Kermit.
It's not that easy being green.
In Czechoslovakia, the show wasn't on television, it was in German TV, and because we lived close to the border, so I could watch it on German TV in German language. It was called Sesamstrasse.
Exler left Czechoslovakia in 1980. She eventually arrived in New York City and found a new opportunity.
My husband, got a job as a messenger service, streetwise messenger service. He comes home and he goes like, "You're not gonna believe, I delivered package to Kermit today." I'm like, "No kidding," I was like all psyched because of Kermit.
Exler called Henson Associates and got a job as a Muppet designer on the Jim Henson Hour. After Henson's death in 1990, nobody, including Exler, knew what would happen next.
It was just sad, you could cut the air. It was like a chainsaw.
Exler left Henson and was freelancing when she got the idea for Art Plush. She's shopping the concept to museum gift stores in New York City and has sold the dolls at craft fairs and in her community.
Creating with these like funny creatures makes me like incredibly happy. And what better way you can think of than to share it with someone?
Emily Lavin, New York City News Service. Legos have been a kid favorite for years. But if you only think of Legos as toys, think again. Chelsea's Agora Gallery is currently displaying art made entirely from Legos. Thousands and thousands of them glued together to create sculptures. The pieces by artist Nathan Sawaya are so unusual, even those with experience in the medium can't believe their eyes.
Nobody that I know can build these kind of Legos. Like, some of my friends have Legos, but they never even built like anything like this.
Sawaya began building with Legos when he was 5 years old. As an adult, he rediscovered them as an art form. But the 36-year-old's work isn't child's play.
He's been able to create pieces that express deep emotion, conflict, humor.
So it's not just toy lovers who are impressed.
I've never played that much with Lego because I'm not so creative, and every time I try to make something, it never works out. So it's unbelievable what a person can do with Legos.
All of the featured pieces are for sale, but they're a little pricier than the average box of Legos. Sawaya's biggest pieces sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Emily Lavin, New York City News Service.
C1 Puck.
I got that.
C1 Puck. Toppy.
Stephanie Fielden is speaking Mohegan to anyone who will listen.
Language is made to be spoken. It's not alive until it is spoken.
Fielden is trying to breathe life into a Native American language that hasn't been widely spoken in more than 100 years. What little Fielden has to go on comes from a very distant relative who began documenting the language in the 1800s.
Fidelia Fielding, who was the last speaker, she left behind diaries that she wrote in Mohegan. So that's like the only bit of the language that was actually written down.
Fielden, a linguist and a member of the Mohegan tribe in Connecticut, has been using Fidelia's 4 diaries to build a dictionary of Mohegan words and phrases. She started with a simple list of Mohegan words, then she found the same words in 2 other Native American dialects, Delaware and Wampanoag. Both of those languages are better documented than Mohegan, and many of those words have English translations. She wrote the Mohegan word next to its Delaware, Wampanoag, and English counterparts, studying how the word changed between languages. Slowly, her list of Mohegan words began to grow.
We had an edition of the Mohegan Dictionary in 2006. I think there were 813 words in it. Now, the 2008 edition, I think there were 950 words, and I think now there are about 1,200 and some words.
Like the native tongues of other Algonquian tribes on the East Coast, the Mohegan language began to fade in the 1800s, when men, women, and children started leaving reservations for work and school.
The people you're working for, you have to communicate with them, and they're not going to speak native language.
Strong says that in recent decades, many of the tribes have focused on celebrating their culture. That includes a renewed interest in their language.
In the 1960s, when there was a great deal more emphasis on identity, the Red Power movement following the Black Power movement began to turn young people more and more to concerns about their culture and their language and so forth.
But trying to learn Mohegan words in grammar is a tough process. Among other differences, words that are adjectives in English are verbs in Mohegan.
Explaining all this to people, you know, if they don't get it, right away, they feel lost and like they're drowning, and so they say, "I quit," and they leave.
Fielden has seen interest in her classes fluctuate.
At some point, we had almost 30 students going at the same time. So that was a real thrill to me. I mean, it was like, rejuvenation, yes, this is going to work. And then it just sort of,
She's incorporating a game to make the language more accessible.
It's called total physical response. You put a sign with an English word, and then using that same sign, you use the Mohegan. And so your head is saying, this means what? Okay, this means what. And so when I say Jaquan, I know my head and my hand tell me it means what.
And she's welcomed interest from other tribes. The Shinnecock people on Long Island have a language very similar to Mohegan. Elizabeth, Tina, and Tahanj Terrence are 3 generations of Shinnecocks who have taken Fielden's language class online. Learning the language helps the women connect to their tribe's past.
To me, it is an organization of the words that we used. I'll say that are more or less scattered. We use them in conversation, or as I say, in place names. But we did not look at it as a language.
It's also boosting the younger generation's interest in their own culture.
Coming back to the res after going to college, it really helped me focus on my identity as a Shinnecock person and the language that I need to learn. It's part of my responsibility, I feel, in this community to be a part of it and to pass it down through the generations.
Fielden is working to help make sure there is a language to pass down, but she knows just how slow the process of reviving a language can be. So like Fidelia Fielden, she's archiving everything she's done, just in case this revival fails.
Tell me the word again for I have.
Nawachanam.
Nawachanam.
If nothing happens, and I die and there's no one here that wants to take over, there will be in the future. Might be 2 or 3 generations from now, but someone is going to come and go into the archives and say, look at this. And they won't have to start at the same place I did.
What? Perfect.
Oh, we're so good today.
Yes, you are. You are. You're wonderful.